I wanted to, for a second, look at how to read the MBTI code. So the middle two letters is going to be your first two functions, but we don't know what order they're going to be in, and we don't know if they're going to be introverted or extroverted. These two outside the first and the last letter in the MBTI code are telling you how to organize the information. Introverted or extroverted is going to describe the orientation of your dominant function or your first function. For me, an INTJ, my dominant function is going to be introverted. For an ENFJ, their dominant function is going to be extroverted. The last letter, the perceiving code, or P, is telling you that the second letter is extroverted, and the J is telling you that the third letter is extroverted, because that's, as we've already talked about, that's how it's ordered. This is going to be N or S, this is going to be T or F. So the J is telling you that the T is extroverted, the P is telling you that the N is extroverted. Now that we know this, we can go through and we can get the cognitive function stacks. So we know that the two primary functions, the first function, the dominant, and the auxiliary, the second, are going to be N and T. We also know from introversion that the dominant function is going to be introverted. But what about our extroverted function? J says that the third letter is extroverted. Thinking is going to be extroverted, but I know that thinking is not my dominant function. My dominant function is introverted. So that means the N here is my dominant function, it's introverted. And because my T is extroverted, it's not my dominant, it's my second or auxiliary function. You might be like, oh, where do we go from there? Well, if you know about cognitive functions in general, you will understand the ideas of mirroring or balance. Because as human beings in our cognitive processes, holistically, it seems like we're seeking balance. And this is like a common theme to humanity, which I find very interesting, is this idea of seeking balance. What is the opposite of T? The opposite of T is F, the feeling. The opposite of extroverted is introverted. So on the other side of your mirror here, so TE mirrors into FI and NI mirrors into SE. And in some systems, you can think of these as being on axes. So there's the NI-SE axes, or there's the TE-FI axes. So you're seeking balance, I suppose. So go through a few different examples here. We have the ENFJ. We know that the first two functions are going to be N and F, but we don't know what order they're going to be in. So intuition and feeling, just keep that in the back of your mind. We know from the J that they're going to extrovert their third letter, which is feeling in this case. And we know from E, the first letter, that they are going to extrovert their dominant function. Well, we just learned that this is extroverted. So this is their dominant function, which translates into FE, meaning by process of elimination, their auxiliary or second function is intuition, and it's introverted. Because it's always extroversion, introversion, extroversion, introversion. Or if you're an introverted type, it's going to be introversion, extroversion, introversion, extroversion. And from the mirroring effect, the opposite of NI is SE. The opposite of extroverted feeling is introverted thinking, seeking balance. In ENFP, we know that intuition and feeling are going to be their dominant and their auxiliary. And you're like, wait a minute, we had an ENFJ, they had NF too. Why is an ENFP so different from an ENFJ? Well, it really matters whether your dominant function is extroverted intuition versus having an extroverted judging function. It makes a huge, huge difference. So we know from perceiving, from having a P here in the fourth slot, that they're going to extrovert their sensing or their intuition function. And we know here that whatever they're going to extrovert is going to be their dominant. So extroverted intuition is the dominant, meaning that what's left over is going to be introverted feeling. And due to this mirroring effect, the mirror of FI is TE. As we saw in the INTJ, TE mirrored to FI. We now see FI mirrored to TE. And then the opposite of NE is SI. And so just to do one more example to really bring it home, we have the INTP. NT is in the middle here, so it means their dominant and auxiliary are going to be N and T. We don't know what order yet, but we know that having the P here last says that they're going to extrovert the second or the sensing letter. So we know that they have extroverted intuition. However, they are an introvert, so the introversion is going to be their dominant function. Because N is extroverted, that means the T is going to be introverted, and it's going to be their dominant function. So what you have is TINE, and due to the mirroring effect, the opposite of NE is SI, and the opposite of TI is FE. I'm not going to go through all 16 types. You can do that as a worksheet for yourself if you feel so inclined.